Okay, everyone, this question comes from Desiree, and I just wanted to address it a little bit. Because I have been cropping the clips and showing the better parts of it, it's the reason I do that is because I want you guys to get the gist of the drill and what it should look like. But she asked a very good question. She wanted to see like how I correct the things before they get right. And so I'm not afraid to share this full work if you're willing to watch it. It's probably about 7 minutes long. It's all the loping part. I did already do the trot part, but the trot part was just trotted one direction 6 turns, I think, trotted the other direction 6 turns. That was all on the other video. That is the only work I did at the trot. When I started to go into the lope, this is the 4-year-old, he was really fumbling with his feet. And when she asked the question of how do you correct one, I think my answer to that is you don't correct them. You adjust it and fix it and ask them again to do it more correctly, or to do what you're asking, but there's not really a scolding or a correction. In my opinion, if you correct them, it just depends because, like I said, the punishment has to fit the crime. If a horse is truly being naughty and deliberately pulling something on you, they may need a correction. But if it's not an attitude issue, it's just a misunderstanding, or they haven't figured out where to put their feet yet, or they're lacking in confidence, or they're unsure, then to me that's not a time for correction. It's just a time to re-show them. And I've missed some opportunity to talk about things already. But we also mentioned like just that I sit around a lot. When things get out of control and their feet aren't where I want them to be and their feet are a little scattered, I will take a time out and I will sit and I will let them mentally regroup, and I'm going to mentally regroup, and I think to myself, how can I show this to them in a better way? And then I go back to it. I'm constantly thinking about what I want my end result to be. And even though I might not be getting it right in the moment, I'm constantly thinking, how can I make it more clear? And a lot of times that has to do with putting my legs on them a little more, being more supportive. Sometimes I have to lighten up with my hands. Sometimes I'm over trying. Sometimes they're going too fast and they just need to slow down and really think about it. There's all kinds of things that come into play, but if you can take a time out and regroup, and then regroup, your horse gets to mentally regroup also. If you just go, next drill, next drill, next drill, that will mentally stress a horse to where they won't be able to absorb what you were already trying to show them. So right there's a perfect example of my humanness. I definitely grabbed him up and pulled him down just a little too harsh. He didn't understand what he was doing wrong, and I kind of grabbed up in frustration. I always regret those moments later. I try not to take it to a point that I can't recover from. I try to be super careful with my emotions, basically, because they're going to feed on my emotions. And if I can make my emotions confident and clear, then their emotions will also become confident and clear. And so here's one of my typical timeouts. I definitely needed it at this point, and it never hurts the horse. A timeout will do you more good than a scalding on any given day. Also, I've noticed, like, if I'm really struggling one direction and they're making a mistake, I'll change it up and go back to their good direction, or go back just to the other direction. Sometimes it's not even necessarily their good direction, but just going back, just changing it to get off that point of friction, and just changing it to go back to something, then come back to what you are having a friction with, and see if the two of you can't calm down and work it out. Another thing I've noticed as far as basically correcting, and again, instead of using the word correct, I'd rather just use adjust and re-show the horse. I do camp out at a barrel a little longer. Like, the drill is intent to go around once, go on, go around once, go on. But I can see when I'm correcting that I'll camp out at a barrel a little bit. Basically, I'm feeling like this colt's not shortening his stride. He's not softening and relaxing with his shoulder. So I am staying into the turn for a little more repetition than what the final drill shows. Now, right about here is where it reaches its ugliest point because he starts flopping that lead with me. Now, my mind, as I thought this through, was like, okay, he is flopping that lead because he's not standing up under himself. He's swinging his hip to the outside. So when you see me grab him with the inside rein and spin him really tight, instead of him relaxing and stepping in with his shoulder, he's actually bracing with his shoulder and flipping with his butt. And so as a result, he's flipping that hind lead or flopping that hind lead and losing it. And so my tight circles are, the intention behind them is to set him on that inside hind leg and pull his shoulder around it so that he comprehends that when I touch the rein, it means soften and bring your shoulders. The rein is attached to the shoulders. The legs are attached to the hip. And so what he's doing is when I'm touching that rein, instead of him softening the shoulder and following my hand, he's tensing the shoulders and flopping his hind end. And so all my intention right there with my tiny spins and even that back up right there says get back here on your back end and lighten up your shoulders and bring them around. Now right about here, I haven't made the change that I wanted to make. I haven't got through to the horse. I've attempted it 3 or 4 times and the swapping of the lead is still happening. So I'm taking a timeout. We both needed it right there. We both needed that timeout. So now I've picked up and I've changed directions. I thought, you know, I just have picked on him long enough for the direction we were going. So I'm going to go the other direction and just change it. Just change it up for the both of us and start thinking back through it. Right there, it's still pretty edgy. I'm even thinking right there, I did pick up my quirt, and this colt's very, very sensitive. And so I do believe I picked my quirt up and I gave him a swat with it over at that barrel when I changed direction. And my intention behind the swat was to say, get your butt up underneath you and use it. I just felt like he wasn't maybe putting enough effort out and trying hard enough for me, and I just wanted him to jump up underneath himself and put some effort into it. Now, what I did notice right after, I only popped him one single time, and it immediately made him nervous, tense, tight, jittery, dancy. I had a harder time controlling his feet after I hit him than before I hit him. However, I do feel like I got a positive response. But it took me about 30 to 45 seconds after I hit him to calm back down, take a breath, and get him to take a breath so he could start thinking about it. So I do think the pop of the whip was effective. I do think, though, I had initially a negative result from it, but then I took my energy down even more, and it ended up being positive in the long run. So all these choices I just kind of make as I go. There's nothing written in stone that says if they do this, you do this. It's not a cookie cutter program. The biggest thing you can do is make the change, read your result. If your result is negative, anxious, nervous, tense, or more tense, then you got to bring that back down. If your result is positive and you got the change you wanted, then you probably made the right motion to get that. And don't overdo anything. Like, you can overdo the energy so easily. So go more into showing them than correcting them or getting anxious and over energetic or over try. And one last thing real quick, just walking around like I am. I do this at the end of every work. They have the opportunity to walk without being picked on. It is how I end every single session, every single horse.